Good afternoon, Fantastic Fest. How y'all doing? I'm so happy that y'all are here for one of my favorite films in the festival, Unidentified Objects, a film that I was really passionate about programming. Both me and Anik really love this movie, and I'm glad that you get to experience it. You know what? It's day 7. We're just gonna speed through the housekeeping real quick. 20% on all Alamo bills. You can still buy an FF at Home badge. Please thank your volunteers. Give them a round of applause. We won't see that. Unidentified objects. Y'all are in for a treat. I think I can say this because it's referenced pretty early. It's a Chekhov play that has aliens. Really wonderful, and in particular, what I want to call out and what we'll talk about after the film is Matthew August Jeffers. And if you don't know who that is, y'all are about to discover him and want to tell everyone about him. An incredible performance about a man who is just angry at the world, and he has every right to be. As a gay man myself, I sometimes get frustrated with this very sanitized or safe portrayal of gay people in films. It's like we're afraid to be complicated and flawed. And this film is not that, and that is why I love it so much. Also, it's like aliens with pink neon lighting, so there's a lot to enjoy. I'm not the best person to tell you about this film. We have Masha and director Juan Felipe here to tell you a little bit about it.
Thank you. Hi everyone. First of all, thank you everyone for being here on You Made It on a Wednesday at 5:30. All the Uber drivers who we told about this week and who made it, thank you to them. The movie's gonna speak for itself. So briefly, I just want to give you some context that this is the first movie of Matthew Jeffers, the main actor. We discovered him in 2020 during COVID. We found him for this movie. This is his first feature film, and we feel incredibly grateful that we found him. He's a beast, and that's what we think. So, Matthew's here. We're gonna be here for the Q&A after. So if you have any questions, we'd love to chat. I can thank you for being here and enjoy our film.
The filmmakers of Unidentified Objects to the front of the theater. One more. Hey, watch with the chairs. Tangled. The fun of live events. What a special film. Thank y'all so much. I'd really love if y'all could introduce yourselves and how you're involved with the film.
I'm Leland Frankel. I'm the screenwriter of the film, and are we none of us sitting? I'll sit. If nobody else is taking it.
I'm Juan Felipe. I'm the director, also a co-writer and producer.
I'm Matthew. I play Peter.
Hi everyone, my name's Masha. I'm one of the main producers of the film.
I'm Ramphis Myrtle, one of the producers.
I mentioned it in my intro, and I do want to ask, Matthew, your performance is really incredible. I told you this, and I still feel that way. I'd love to know how you got involved with the project and how you went preparing as an actor.
Well, I got the audition from my agent, and I was right in the middle of the first summer of COVID, July 2020, and I was in a weird headspace for various reasons, and I kind of put it aside. Typically, I respond to my agent immediately, and this one I let linger for a little too long, and she responded back. She was like, hey, the filmmakers are wondering if you're gonna submit. And actually my partner, Leah, who's in the audience tonight, she was like, you're an actor. This is what you do. Just send a tape. And, I was, put a 5-minute thing together, and I sent it out. And I got the call back, and, a couple days later, I had a Zoom call back with these incredible, talented filmmakers. And it was off and running from there. And in terms of like the preparation, you know, I get weird sometimes when preparing for things. You know, a little woo woo sometimes, but you know, I think the first thing I did was figure out how I lived in Peter's shoes, right? Because I think as an actor, you're always figuring out how to cross that bridge into this other character that is not you, but really is you, right? Because that's who they're seeing. And so I kind of had to dig deep within myself first, figure out the colors that existed in Peter, and then converse with those colors and figured out how I was going to, you know, bring that into this really complicated person that I do and I do not resonate with. And that involved, you know, writing journals, watching a lot of LGBTQ cinema, and doing weird late night dances that I won't bore you with, in terms of how he moved in the world. I'm very I only dance when there's no one around, and that's when I love to explore. So anyway, yeah.
You know, I was in the second theater for the last part of it, and it was right in the scene in the bar, which breaks my heart every time. It makes me cry. The way you deliver "no" when he calls you that slur is filled with such hurt and such anger. It's really incredible. I'd love to know from the rest of you, how did you decide to approach this project? Did you know that Peter as a character was going to be your lead? How did you land on that?
Yeah, so this was before COVID. It was an idea, sketches, character study on a homosexual dwarf, from like just passion of like he and I we work together. We've been working together for 7 years, and COVID basically was a catalyst for this project. So like literally when the pandemic hit, he got fired from his job. I was basically at the time I was starting to work as a freelance filmmaker, and also basically was unemployed, nothing happening, and kind of like that put us in a dark space that I think it was these road trips are like a form of escapism in some ways, and so I think it just came to us in a very fast manner. The first draft was written in 4 weeks. And then we always knew it was Peter. We always knew from the beginning, because I think he represented a lot of the things we were feeling at the time, and like basically hatred towards the world. I'm an immigrant in the U.S., and even the gas station scene, the sentiment I feel against immigrants, and obviously you get toxic with all the politics, everything is going, and you have a perspective about things. But Peter, in some ways, I think it represents those outsiders, those misfits, and we just started casting right away without even having financing. We basically built the trail, the tracks as we were going. We were just determined to do it.
One of the things I love about the film is it's both firmly aware of identity politics and how those can be really empowering for defining yourself, but also how sometimes that can be limiting, where people only see you as something, or you're expected to approach the world a certain way. And I love that. Was that a theme that you always wanted to explore, or am I just reading too much into it?
No, you are actually most of the stories that I tend to levitate towards is very, very much an exploration of character. Like that's the kind of stuff he and we have like most of the stuff that we would like to work on is really like exploring identity through genre bending lenses, and through like trying to understand they say key of a character and try to like from different perspective, and obviously this is an exercise on that. But yeah, actually it's funny because it kind of like one of those things that we like, we started not realizing we weren't purposely doing it, but I do care about identity. I do care about exploring all of those themes within our characters, even like what a character means. It means to be queer, right? Like and also like what it means to be like a person, like he says, a circle within a circle within a circle, and how society perceives you just because you're different or you're not quite like their neighbor, you know. And it's just something that I think I find fascinating. So I would say this is an exploration, and our next screenplays are very similar as well in that sense.
I love the color pink as a motif in the film. I think it adds both this level of unreality and this really very queer sensibility. When did you know that that was going to be a motif within the film?
So that was we're a low budget film, so we really couldn't design a lot of things. But the only thing we could control, or we tried to control, were the pinks and the yellows. I think the yellows, in some ways, consciously and subconsciously, if you think, which is funny, I watched Lynch and Oz recently, and I was like, oh my god, this movie actually would be a great double feature. Lynch and Oz is a documentary playing at Fantastic Fest, and it's got like the yellow big, the Wizard of Oz, Yellow Big Road kind of vibe. The yellow has like that sense of escapism throughout, and if you look at Winona, she's wearing a yellow shirt when she arrives, and it's kind of like she's this character who's literally escaping the world, escaping reality, not wanting to assume any responsibilities, wanting to get away. And so that was like a color that I thought could represent that, and we could manipulate it. Like a lot of street signs have yellow, a lot of stuff, and we could just be smart about it. And the pinks comes from like, we found it. I love neon pink, what you said at the beginning. I love that color. I think it's very cinematic. And with our production designer, we earlier on decided that we wanted to make the car pink. Like I thought it was something iconic, and that became almost like the color representing aliens or outsiders or like misfits and whatever, or aliens, like extraterrestrial life too. So there's pink everywhere, like consciously and subconsciously at different levels.
Matthew, when you said you were initially had the project and you kind of let it sit, was there something that scared you about this, or were you just not sure that this was the right thing for you?
Well, to be frank, and we're with Leland Frankel. That was good.
Years you've been sitting on that.
So the side. Here's the truth. I read the side. And the side was the opening conversation, and it was like, you want me to let you, a person that I do not know, drive my car to, and I read, I was like, this is bad writing. I don't like, I was like, this is, I'm not gonna do this. I'm not, and I mean, and we edited, but I was like this, I thought that it was, it gave me, like, I only had that, and I was like, this is a student film, and I was very COVID conscious, right, and COVID safe in that moment, and I had some personal things and so I was just reticent. I was reticent, and I think I was very, very, very far away from the creative fuel that I had pre-COVID. When I was doing, theater off Broadway, I was making a community, and then suddenly I was plucked away from all of this creative energy, and I'm very sensitive to, if I feel isolated, like Peter, right, I'm going to isolate. And I felt that way, and so when I read it, it just, I don't know. I mean, it didn't give me, it didn't spark. It didn't spark, and on the flip side, I knew that it was a leading role, and I had never played anything in a feature film, let alone a leading role, and so for perhaps subconsciously, I was very, very scared. Right, very, very scared that in some way, that there was a reality where I could be bequeathed this, this film to carry. And then ultimately, after I was convinced to audition by Leah, and I got it, I took a couple of days after I accepted the role to then first read the script, and then it was late at night. It was 11 p.m. at night, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna. If I agreed to do this, I need to read it. And I read it, and I didn't go to sleep that night.
No.
I literally did not sleep that night. I was, as a little person, it's a dream, right? Yeah. This is a dream come true. And I remember getting in bed at like 3 a.m, and I was like viscerally emotional because I had never read or watched anything in my life that Leland put on the page. And it was just this flood of imagination, and all of that creativity that I felt so far away from was suddenly, it's like inundated. And it's just literally a dream come true to have been connected with, a future Oscar-winning screenwriter and director and producer. It's a real thrill.
I mentioned this in my intro. I love that the characters are so flawed. As I mentioned, as a gay man, sometimes you get to either be really good or you get to be the villain. And you are sometimes that in the same scene, in the best way, a way that I love, a way that makes me like see the humanity of Peter in what you're doing. What is it like crafting that character both together?
I think part of it is. Oh shit, that's time. No, it's. I think what you said there is really key to it, because I think when we write films, a lot of our work deals with identity in like a sort of very self-interrogating way, and in a way that I try to, that obviously is conscious of identity politics, but the way I like to think of it is I'm someone who's terminally online, who tries not to write characters that are terminally online and speak and think like the way people do on the internet, because I do think there's a tendency when you start to define a character from those external aspects of identity building inwards, you wind up with somebody who, you know, they're representing something but they're not really a person. And when you look at just the person, well, there's even like the best, most like noble person you can think of contains both of those elements. They contain unbelievable random cruelty, and they contain, you know, empathy and love and things like that. And so in creating Peter, it was having a balance of that, where it's like someone who, I think there's an instinct to try and make someone, it's like, oh, to make someone a saint because they're dealing with hardships, but hardships don't necessarily make you kind. I think hardships can often do the opposite, and I think our challenge was finding the balance of that with the character.
I think a lot of it was a lot of conversations with Matthew. For example, he and I built like this metaphor of his character being a lighthouse that is the most beautiful, like most beautiful lighthouse ever made, but he has no electricity. And like that, it kind of like we were able to develop some languages throughout, like communicating and trying to understand how this character felt. And I think quick enough you get to sympathize or like empathize with Peter, and then a lot of it is giving him the credit, because I think it's really, at the end of the day, like you can do so much as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, but if you don't have like a great collaborator, an actor who's really committed to a role, who's really willing to put everything in it, then you really can't do much. Like actors have so much influence over a final product, so your job as a filmmaker is really making sure you bring the right person. And for this one, it was really hard because there's a really wide pool of very talented little people performers out there that, as you can imagine, they don't have a lot of lead roles. So we were pretty much able to audition every little person except Peter Dinklage, but which is funny because he gets all the roles. But he was, once we saw his tape and his callback, we were like, he has to do it. He had already brought, so that was, yeah. I think it's cast well. I think they're gonna really help.
One last thing to add there. I think a big thing for me, at least when I write, is I always try to instill, I don't think you have to like a character as long as you are compelled by them. And I think
and the pain. I think pain
yeah.
is a way in which, as a storyteller, you can really build, like, at least, I mean, maybe it didn't work for some people, but for me, I think
they were wrong. Those people.
Characters that I can't relate. Usually, the reason why how I ended up liking them is because they are suffering. They have some sort of pain, either like physical pain or emotional, psychological pain, whatever that is. I think that was something that we were able to bring earlier on, and you don't like it at the beginning, but you start understanding his pain throughout.
I liked him at the beginning because I just liked watching him be bitchy.